All right, welcome to Culture Couch Live. Boys, how are you, Jez, Misso, how you going?
Morning, Rizzy.
Hey,
boys.
Good to see you all. I'm going to paraphrase, we've probably had 3 or 4 questions on the concept of trust. So sort of paraphrasing those questions. I guess what the common theme is, a lot of people have been reading about it, whether it's in books or leadership conferences, webinars, et cetera, and probably have asked us to define it a little bit more in a real practical sense. So probably before we talk about the practical information, Misso, in the studies that you're doing at the moment, just run us through the concept of trust.
Yeah, so trust, Rizzy, all of the research points to engagement being a huge factor when it comes to trust. So engagement essentially is people going over and above what they're supposed to do, going the extra yard, that discretionary effort. And what Jez has got on the screen at the moment was a research study done by the ADP Research Institute. It was a huge study, 25 countries, nearly 30,000 workers. And the research really pointed out that being surrounded by people that you trust in the workplace really matters.
Yeah.
And that's the slide up on the screen there now. There are 3 levels of trust. Trusting the teammates that you work with, trusting your immediate manager or your team leader, and completely trusting the senior leaders.
Yeah.
And the results of that is that if you've got 2 of those, you're 3 times more likely to be fully engaged.
Yeah.
But if you've got 3 of those, you're 15 times more likely to be fully engaged. So trust is a huge thing when it comes to engagement.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And really, with 2 of those, most of the 2 would be the people you work with and your immediate manager.
Yeah.
The third one is your senior leaders. So the onus is really on the senior leaders, I feel, from the research we've seen, to create that environment of trust, because if you can, it's almost a magic potion when it comes to engagement.
Yeah, and before I hand over to Murph, Misso, so run me through. So where was that study done, and how many?
It was across 25 countries and involved nearly 30,000 employees across a wide range of industries.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Murph, it's sort of the foundation of everything we do, isn't it? So I guess, again, getting back to some of the questions, we sort of understand the concept, and Misso's explained it well, the results of a lack of trust and the results of trust. But let's now look at what it really means in the workplace and how we build it and how we look at it.
Yeah, so the model that we often refer to as Stephen Covey's model from the speed of trust. And trust is built on 2 components. Have you got the talent to do your job when the heat's on, when you're under pressure? And the other one is, do you do what's best for the team, or do you do what's best for yourself? So when do you deliver on your word? Do you stick to the values? Do you stick to the game plan, in essence? So when you trust someone, they've both basically got the skill to do the job, and they also do what's best for the team when the heat's on. If you don't trust someone on the other side of it, then it's because they may lack the skill, so therefore they need some training, or they may need some support around living the values. And if you look at the if you plot this on an X and Y graph, then what you can start to see is the person in the top left-hand corner there, they're a person that probably needs some training because they need to improve their talent. So what you're really trying to do is get them across there. The person in the bottom left, basically get them off the bus as quickly as you can, because they lack talent and they lack team. As I said, you get that person to train, and you want your leaders, as Misso said, you want your leaders in the top right-hand corner because they are the people that are going to drive it. And if the organisation or the people around don't trust them, we're in real strife. And I guess we often talk, Rizzy, about the coach killer, and that's the person in the bottom right-hand corner where they're super talented. They bring a lot of money into the organisation. Everyone knows they're a good performer, but everyone also knows that they're a talented dickhead. And so what we have to do is make sure that we get them up into the top right-hand corner. But don't waste too much time, because if you do waste too much time and they are a center of influence, then what happens is that they'll take people with them. And they some interesting research, just picking up on Misso's research point, is that an underperforming person in your team will decrease the performance of the team by as much as 45%. And so,
yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Not only do they underperform themselves, but what they do is they diminish the performance of the good people, because other people start to be affected by their behavior and take shortcuts. So that's I guess that's sort of the model that we often refer to. And just to finish off, Ruzi, as you know, we've added a piece to that, because if you look at trust being character or team, competence or talent, but we also believe there's a care component. So it's okay to be good at your job, and it's okay to do the right thing by the team, but you have to be able to demonstrate care by building relationships and having the honest conversations, because without that care, then the other two won't necessarily come into play. So does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, look, that's fair. Leave that up, because I just wanted, before I bring Woz in, and just to explore it. And I think, Misso, largely a lot of what happens is we see this all the time, Murph, isn't it? We tend to promote on competence.
Yep.
So what we tend to see is a really technically good executive team, senior exec team, CEO, but they've never really been taught. Now, when we talk about character, we don't necessarily say ill of character. You know, what we're saying is just those soft skills around empathy and building relationships and giving and receiving feedback. So is that a fair assessment? If we're going to explore the trust, Murph, is often our leadership team is really technically competent, but can lack the character and care, because we typically promote on competency.
Yeah, 100%. And it's actually quite easy to define. So, you know, in how many minutes? 3 minutes, 5 minutes. We've gone through and spoken about trust and defined it. But how you actually build it is the harder piece.
Yeah.
And as you say, if you're promoted through your competence because you're good at your job, it's actually quite. You have to take a big step back, because you build trust by being good at your job, but then you've got to be able to put in place the system or the process that allows the honest conversations that will then build the trust. And so you're right. If you are promoted because you're good at your job, it can be quite difficult to put in place this whole concept of trust, if you like.
And that whole area with care is a really huge thing now. The cost of a poor culture can be seen in dollars and cents around retention of good staff. You know, if you've got staff walking out the door on a regular basis, not only are you losing good people, but you've then got to bring other people in. You've got to spend money inducting them. And the research has shown that people will tend to stay in an organisation where they feel people care about them.
Yeah.
And you know, their development and their progress is important to senior management.
You find that was when you're at the minute, like I know there's every company we go to, there's a skill shortage because of the lack of immigration at the moment. You must find that was in terms of the cost of turning staff over or losing good staff.
So yeah, 100%. Like the hardest part of it's probably, I'd say, it depends on your organisation, of course, about what sort of how technical the company is or complicated the workload or what you're actually doing is. But it's a 3 to 6 month, probably 6 months, I'd say, more commonly to get someone from, you know, the infancy, even if they're a skilled person, to delivering consistent outcomes for the business. So if you think about, okay, well, I'm not really going to get the best out of this person for a 6 month period, then you have that person leave. Usually it's about a 3 month window, 2 to 3 month window to hire somebody. So like that consistent impact of actually having to go through the exercise of losing people in that scenario is key. But the care factor piece is that 100%. That's the most important part. Like I can have myself personally, like, yeah, pretty good and competent all the time in my job. I've learned character, but trying to bring care into the organisation is sometimes difficult, and you have to be a good leader, and you have to create really strong relationships in order to develop that care piece. Once you've got the care piece, that's when you know your culture is massive.
But the interesting piece around that too, I reckon, is that when good people leave, it becomes a really difficult moment for the rest of the team because they're seeing good people leave. And Brené Brown talks about it, the fact that in a poor culture, the people that disengage the quickest are the people with the best self-worth. So the people that you don't want to leave are the people that are actually going. And so it has this horrific knock-on effect. So taking the time to set up your culture carefully so that you've got this element of trust that Miso spoke about at the beginning, its value to the business is just phenomenal.
Let's pick up on that, Murph, because that's a great point. And let's go back to the coach killer. And so explain to people that matrix again. So what we're talking about, the coach killer is it's let's use an example. It's the salesperson potentially that sells $10 million a year and makes budget year on year, but turns up late to meetings, doesn't really care about anyone else. When things are going well in the economy, a good teammate because they're making a truckload of money. Why do we put up with them? Why do we put up with them? So maybe I'll go to you from a study point of view. What's the psychology? Because Murph, you've articulated really well. They're not only they look like they're having a positive effect because the bottom line they're $10 million of sales, but in effect, what's happening is all the good people are leaving. They're affecting all the good people from a negative output point of view. So overall, your business is down on where it should be. But Miso, so any tips? Because most companies, I would say, would resonate with this conversation.
Yeah. So the research shows that leaders get clouded by the money that these jerks are bringing in. The talented jerks, which is what we talk about, and they forget about the compound effect of a really great culture. So you're seeing the dollars and cents coming through the door, and okay, I'm prepared to accept what this person isn't doing for our culture. But they forget about, well, if I was to move that person on, what's the compound effect with the rest of my team with regard to dollars and cents and how that's going to improve?
Yeah, exactly. So we also talk about, so let's be fair to the jerks, as Miso's put them. They actually can be really good if we can get them up into that box, can't they? So maybe let's explore some of the techniques which we think are quite simple, but maybe explore if you have got that salesperson that's turning up late, we want to get them in the box. And if you can, they can be your best people, because often people look around and go, oh, we're never going to get Ruzi in that box. Suddenly he jumps up there and stays there. He becomes a real flag bearer for your organisation. So what are some of the tips to get them up in that top quadrant?
I think ultimately it comes down to, your organisation needs to have the framework in place to show that rewards are based on the behaviours that you're performing in the organisation that aren't related to the actual outcomes. It's like, am I building relationships? Am I supporting the team? Am I doing all the right things? And so that's foundation. Once you've got that framework in place, you're sort of leading by example, or you're role modelling what your expectations are of people in the organisation. But second of all, I think our framework is about actually having the ability to provide feedback from the team members, providing a trustful environment to which, even if this person is a high performer in terms of tasks or outcomes, they're actually able to sit in the room, have the team provide feedback, and this person has the opportunity then to opt in or opt out in terms of behavioural change.
Yeah. Murph, let's finish on sport, because I think it does in this area. They can be better or worse, because the talent, can be in some ways way more obvious. But again, we've seen some great examples of some really tight guidelines, putting the behaviours in place, some really clear feedback, and some incredible turnarounds of these so-called jerks that become our best people.
Yeah, and I think so. What we do have to be careful of here is, just before I answer your question, Ruzi, is they're not mutually exclusive. So you can get some amazing, talented people
Yeah.
that are phenomenal leaders.
Yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah.
so, and that you know, that your Trent Cotchins, your Joel Selwards, the great captains,
Yeah.
but also really, really talented athletes.
Talented, yeah.
So it's just because you're talented doesn't mean to say you are going to behave badly. I think that's really
100%.
important
Yeah.
to put
Yeah.
there. And the second piece is not all of the people that sit down in the bottom right-hand corner are jerks. Like often they're quite good people.
Yeah.
They just don't want to play the team game.
Yeah.
So they're happy just
And I think too, Murph, though, I think to Waz's point, they've actually never been shown.
Yeah.
Because that's something that people ask me all the time. How was player X? How was player Y? I'm like, as soon as we gave them...
I would have sat in that quadrant myself, personally, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I know I can do my job, but I was an arsehole.
Yeah.
But understanding what that looks like and how to get there, if you can put that in place, you know, that's when you can get, you know, a really good outcome for the team.
And I think that's where, I think you're right, Waz. That's where the company is culpable, because the company hasn't provided the framework, Murph, for that person to get up in that top quadrant.
Yeah. And so if you provide the framework and the trust and the care and the group, and then start having those honest conversations, then what you can do is you can make clear to those people, we need you to get up into that quadrant.
Yeah.
And we'll do whatever we can to support you to get there. But ultimately, if you can't make that, well, then you probably can't stay.
Yeah.
But I think one of the fallacies is that those people are assholes or jerks. Often they're not. They're just good people who are just going about their business, doing a really good job, and haven't really stopped to consider it or haven't been given the feedback. So, yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Simon Sinek puts it really well, because the scoreboard doesn't reward the right things. He talks about that. He talks about the scoreboard's wrong, because what we're doing is, in effect, we're actually rewarding the bad behaviour, Misso, because we're actually, the dollars that you talked about, we're actually now not only not challenging that bad behaviour, we're rewarding that bad behaviour, because that guy is actually getting a bonus at the end of the year of $10,000, $20,000. So it is adjusting the scoreboard too, isn't it?
Yeah. And really that's what we do. We go into places and we articulate what a good culture is, because a lot of times people, you know, organizations don't know and they're not sure, or more importantly, they're not sure how to do it. So articulating what a good culture is and establishing, you know, how it can be embedded and, you know, kept going, that's the way that you can bring those guys in the bottom quadrant up into being good team players.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Well done. Yeah, and I talk about, Murph, you touched on it, to act your way in or act your way out. But if you don't know what the system is, or you don't, or the wrong thing's rewarded, you actually think you are acting your way in, because, yeah, I'm making money. That's fantastic. That's what I'm rewarded. So isn't that acting our way in? So we've got to be really clear on the framework, really clear on the scoreboard, really clear on what we're rewarding, what we're challenging. And then as a result, that's going to build the trust. But we absolutely know trust is the foundation for a good, high-performing organisation. So hopefully, to the 3 or 4 people that ask a similar sort of question, hopefully that gives some insight into trust, guys. So well done, Murph, well done, Misso, well done, Waz. Have a good weekend. May the Kangaroos have a victory. And any shout out to anyone else? You want to give a shout out to anyone else?
I got a shout out. So today is an amazing effort over in Oslo. So a guy called Stewie McSween is a Tasmanian guy from King Island. Stewie McSween holds every Australian middle distance record from 1,500 to 10K. So today he ran the mile at the Bislett Games in Oslo in 3:48, the fastest time in the world for 7 years.
Wow.
No way.
He broke Craig Mottram's 16-year-old Australian record. Unbelievable run.
So, and the name again, sorry, Misso, what's his name?
Stewie McSween. Yep.
Stewie McSween. Well done, mate. Well, I'll tell you what I look forward to. Maybe his name on the tan. I'll walk around the tan. So you know we've got the best times on the tan. I haven't been able to sneak up there yet, Murph. So I'm still working on that.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, Reezy, but I think it's behind you.
Unless you're on a scooter.
There's a bit of real talk right there. But no, that's a phenomenal effort, isn't it?
Yeah,
to be able to do
unbelievable.
that in all those distances. And, great shout out. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on the Culture Couch Live.
See you, everyone.